Okay, YouTube, in this video we're going to be exploring properties of sets of data, and specifically we're going to be looking at the measures of central tendency of a data set. And when we talk about central tendency, we're talking about kind of trying to describe the middle of the data set in different respects to kind of glean some information from the data. But also how to represent the data using what we call frequency distributions as well as histograms. So we're going to begin by considering what we mean when we talk about the mean, the median, and the mode for a set of data. So what I want to do here is just kind of take a moment to write some general statements about each of these things, but let's consider the mean. Another name for the mean is the average. Okay, so we call this the average often. Okay, and it is found by adding all of the data and dividing by the number of data. And so there is something else that I would like to say about that. When you add up all of the data, as a matter of fact, we say the data in a data set, we often use the letter X to represent them. So for instance, this data down here, we could say if I were to put this in order, then we would have a data set that's populated with all of these data X's. We say this is like my first datum here. Let me adjust this here very quickly. Move this to the front. There we go. I should be able to draw on this now. We say, but this would be like my first datum, my second datum, my third datum. We use X's to represent the data in the data set often. So when we talk about adding together all the data, you will often see this little notation here, but we'd say that the average datum is given by X bar, how we read this, and we say it is the sum of, and we write a capital sigma of X all over the N here, where this is the sum of data, and we also have over number of data. But that is how we find the average here. And I guess if there's one more thing I'd say about the average, it represents the most typical case. And it doesn't have to come out to be one of the original data in the data set. But when we talk about what is the average, it is the most typical case represented by the data set, and usually in the middle. Okay. So now let's talk about the median. We talk about the median. When you hear median, it's kind of like that thing when you drive down the road is in the middle. We say it is the middle datum. Okay, and then you notice I use the word datum here. Datum is the singular of data. So we say these data, but this datum. Okay, but we say it is the middle datum, and we could say half of the data is bigger than median and half smaller. So it's kind of like saying if you were to line your data up in order, so we have to write that here, data must be in order to find the middle datum here. But we say half the data is bigger than that, half the data is smaller than that. And finally, if we go over here and we look at the mode, when you hear mode, I want to think it is the most frequently occurring datum. Okay, and there can be a tie, So sometimes you have two modes because there's a tie between two most commonly occurring things. But we just say it's the most often occurring thing, or we like to use this word frequency a lot. So we say it's the most frequently occurring datum. So what I want to do is that I've got a couple data sets here and I want to consider them. But it says what I want to do is determine the mean, median, and mode for all the data in the data set. But then I also want to elaborate on what each is actually revealing about the data set. You don't just want to find them, you want to tell what they mean. Okay, so we say, considering this following data set, it represents the weights in pounds of 12 randomly selected research subjects prior to a weight loss drug trial. So we have all of these weights right here. So I'm going to give a suggestion. The very first thing that we should probably do is likely put this data set in order. So we are going to do this. We say, well, I notice here that the smallest datum that I see, we call this the minimum, is 200. So I'm going to write 200. And when you write data in order, it's a good idea to like maybe circle this datum and say, I've already counted this one. So the next highest one, I see a 208. I don't think there's anything smaller than a 208 that I see here. So 208 and then 210 sticks out of my eye here. So we say 210, 208. Do we have anything else in the 210s? Well, like the teens here. We have 215, 215, 215. And let's see, we're now in the 20s maybe, so we say 222, 223, so 222, 223, 222, 223. Okay, got those out of the way. Oh, 230 would be the next one here, so we say 230, 230. Nothing else in the 230s, but we say 240 and then 247, so 240 and then 247. And then 255. And the best thing you can do for yourself, and I know we circled all of these, I'm going to put these little cusps around it. It indicates this is a set of data. But I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And so I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I did say 12 randomly selected, and I suppose I should have said 10, but this is all 10 of our data after making sure that we have it. So in order to find the mean, median, and mode, starting with the mean, I think the best thing to do is add up all of the data. And so this is something that I recommend that everybody actually does. Explicitly writes these two values out. Like take the time to say that all of my data added up to this, and then the number of data was this. So we say like 10, and I could say 10 subjects. Okay, 10 subjects. But I want to know what this data adds up to. So we are going to take a moment here to add these up. We say 200 plus 208 plus 210 plus 215 plus 222 plus 223 plus 230 plus 240 plus 247. And then last but not least, the 255. So when we add all these up, we say 2250. And I like to label a lot when you're talking about data. So we say total pounds. So this is like the total pounds of everybody in the group, and there were 10 subjects. So when we find the mean, I'm going to write X bar, and this is the mean. And I'll even write the mean equals. But the best thing to do for yourself is always make sure that you write it this way first. We say really what we're doing, and you don't have to label it. I am labeling in this case, just to kind of indicate what this average is telling us. But it's saying there were a total of 2,250 pounds divided up over 10 subjects. We want to know, so how many pounds per subject is that? And of course we could ask the calculator, but since we are dividing by 10, it's going to just move our decimal here. But we say that the average weight is 225 pounds, and I'm going to write 225.0, and you should always label your statistics. So we'd say that the mean is approximately 225.0 pounds, and you notice that I went out to 0 here. The reason why is because since our original data set went out to the nearest whole number, we will agree that our statistics should likely, at least the average, go out one extra place value when you calculate them. So even though it was a 0, we should still write that. Okay. So now the median and the mode. Let's go ahead and find these. We have the median equals and the mode equals, and I'm going to kind of squeeze these in here, but we say, were there any ties? And I noticed that none of these weights occurred more than once, and I'm kind of skipping the mode here, but we can say that there was no mode for this data set. There was no most frequently occurring weight. Okay, so that would give us an idea of, if something was very common. And then the median, what's the middle weight? The interesting thing here is that we have an even number of data in the data set. And so we will say that when you find the median, you start on the outside, so you count in. You say, I'll count in those ones, I'll count in these ones. Okay, I'll count in these ones here, and I'll count in these ones here. And you notice that you land on 222 and 223. The interesting thing is, when you have an even number of data, you will always land on two data in the middle. So what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to add those together and divide by however many there were, which, in other words, you're averaging these two numbers. So the average of 222 and 223 will be their midpoint. So 222 plus 223 equals, divided by 2, obviously 222.5 is this middle weight. So we say 222.5 pounds. I want to make sure you label this. So when we talk about what these things mean, let's go ahead and revisit these, but we say the average weight was about 225 pounds. Sorry for that being a little covered up there. But 225 pounds, I can get that out of the way, actually. We say that most commonly somebody in this group weighed 225 pounds. Also, this 222.5, we could say that half of the weights were below 222.5 and half were above. So this is what the median is indicating for us. And then the fact that they had no mode means that there was no most frequently occurring datum in the data set here. Okay. So really making sure that we indicate what these things mean. So now we have a data set up here. I would say that you could pause the video and try this on your own is what I would mention. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead and find the mean, median, mode for this here. It says the following data set represents the 1 mile times for 11 randomly selected subjects who claim that they smoke at least a pack of cigarettes per day. So we want to find the mean, median, and mode and tell what these things mean. So the first thing, again, we're going to put this data set in order. I'll go a little bit faster this time. We say 8 looks like my minimum mile time. 9 is my next mile time. I don't see a 10. Oh, I do see a 10. We have a 10 and I see 11 on the other side. So we have 10, 11. Do I see any 12s? Don't see a 12, but I see a 12.5. So we say 12.5 mile time. We say 12.5. Here's a 13 and then a 13.5. So a 13-minute mile, 13.5-minute mile. Got those out of the way. We say 14-minute mile. Okay. And looks like 15, 16, 20. So 15, 16, and 20. We'll put these little cusps around the outside and indicate this is a set of data. So we say if I want to find the average, we say X bar, we can call this the mean. We also want the median. We also want to indicate the mode. So I get myself set up here. As a matter of fact, before we go do this, let's count all our data. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 subjects. So we say that in terms of finding the mean, we always want to actually write these things out, and I have 11 runners, smokers, however you want to refer to them. And then we say, what was the total of the data here? So we just get our calculator out. We'll add these up again. We say, adding them up, clear. 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12.5 plus 13 plus 13.5 plus 14 plus 15 plus 16 plus this 20 on the outside. So we get 242, and we should label this. We say 242 what? This was in minutes. So we have 242 total minutes. And again, when you calculate the average, it's best to say 242 total divided up 11 ways. And in this case, I've already got this 242 in my calculator. We'll divide that by 11. And the original data set, now, looking at this, the furthest out it went was to the nearest tenth. We say that I had 2 times going out to the tenth. So when I write this, I'm going to write 22 minutes. But I'm going to write 22.00 minutes because I'm going to round out 1 extra place value on my average. So a 22-minute mile, the median, if we count in, I'm going to count in 1, 2, 3, 4 each side first. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice that the bigger your data sets get, you can count in more at a time each time. So we say 13 was our middle time, so 13 minutes. 13 minutes. And then last but not least, the mode. And I noticed that none of these times occurred twice. Now, looking at this again, I know that I've made a mistake somewhere here because there's no way that the middle time or the mile time here that was the average is 22 minutes. So something must have occurred when I added these up. So 8 plus 9 plus 10 plus 11 plus 12.5 plus 13 plus 13.5 plus 14 plus 15 plus 16 plus 20. So 342 this time. I would say that my calculator is giving me grief here, and I can go back and add these again, but I would say go back and add these again because this time is incorrect because there's no way that 22 minutes could have occurred as the average time. But we'd say that indicating what these things mean, we have the most common time. The median time is 13 minutes, and we say no mode. And you'll find that a lot of time the mean, median, and mode are usually in the same neighborhood. Cheers.